here at CrossFit MFP, we have a very, very, very special guest. Some of you may not even know her because Miss Leigh McCormack is a 5 a.m.er and pretty much a very, let's just say committed 5 a.m.er. We'll get into that story in just a little bit. So we're excited to let you all know a little bit more about Leigh, for her to share her story and really just go on a nice little journey with all the ins and outs of her life, the CrossFit journey. And we'll get rock and rolling here in just a second. But our flow here, Leigh, which hopefully you've been listening to some podcasts doing your preparation, we're going to do our 3 breaths, just get us into the space, and then we'll get started. All right? So wherever you're at, again, the idea is to just, we talked about last week, is just embrace that present moment in time. Just that simple practice of just slowing down, reflecting on that here and now. And for us, give that gratitude to those who've allowed us to have our guest here, to be in this space. For a guest that is making the time and energy and commitment, be in our space to share the story. Our gratitude to all of you who are listening, making that time and effort to learn, to be open, and to understand. So let's take our 3 breaths. Take a deep inhale through your nose. Hold your breath. And exhale. Again. Hold. Exhale. Last one. Hold 5, 4, 3, 2, and let it out. All right. Leigh, hopefully that gets you ready to go. All right. What we got here is a joke quote, so let's take it.
All right. So I have a Malcolm Gladwell quote that says, "I feel I change my mind all the time. And I sort of feel that's your responsibility as a person, as a human being, to constantly be updating your positions on as many things as possible. If you don't contradict yourself on a regular basis, then you're not thinking." So I thought this was a cool quote because, being wrong about something and changing your mind is a good thing. And I think that we live in this world of rigid thinking, and that just kind of blocks us to opening our mindset to new ideas. And naturally with growth, you change your mind, you become a different person. You kind of live 1,000 lives. I think, honestly, we don't just live one set life, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing to grow. It's a good thing to evolve. It's a good thing to change. It's a good thing to look back at your own thoughts and ideas and be like, man, what was I thinking? It's a good thing because it means you're looking inward and you're trying to continue growing. You're trying to change.
Guest McCormack, does that hit anywhere for you?
Yeah, just thinking about, I'll get into this more, just kind of what I thought about CrossFit prior to starting, and what my experience is and what my thoughts are now definitely have changed. So I think, you never know. I always say you don't know what you don't know. So, just different experiences grow us and help.
You don't know what you don't know. That's our quote for the day.
Lock it in.
Well, a few things. We'll just talk a little bit about Leigh. And wow, it's got at least been almost 5 years.
Yeah,
I mean, you're almost an OG, probably within that first year and a half to 2 years. And I do remember the inquiry email. You were recently, before CrossFit, you were doing a boot camp right around the corner in Havertown. And you were an inquiry for coming to a 5 a.m. class because that was basically the only time you could make this happen. And just as a general point of view, as your coach pretty much throughout all these 5 years, because that's my class that I coach, and I love the 5 a.m. and opening up this gym, but you definitely have had a evolution, obviously physically, which we'll talk about.
Mhm.
And also, the thing I've noticed a lot recently is your holistic approach. It really is part of the podcast. What we do is really just opening up to how are we growing in other areas in our life. And I think just how you have been emotionally here as a member, but also as a community member with the class, and also just your mental approach to like how you're performing and like what this relationship of fitness is with you. I've definitely noticed a shift with how you approach that, and I think it's just been a wonderful journey. And obviously, the big thing I like to talk about is we'll talk about how Leigh is a doctorate, right? As a teacher, and obviously as a teacher, you have a very dense, packed schedule. So 5 a.m. is really only your time for you. However, teachers have that time during the summer where they're not teaching as much, and for some reason that just seems to be still your time of working out at 5 a.m. and you just really have this commitment. So let's talk a little bit about one. You are a teacher at what high school? Or
At Gladwin Elementary.
Gladwin,
Yeah.
okay. Gladwin Elementary, Lower Marion School
Yep.
District, though.
Mhm.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more of you as a human in terms of, well, one, what attracted you to be a teacher at, Gladwin? What do you teach, actually? What do you teach?
I teach special education.
Special education. Beautiful. Tell us a little bit about that story of what attracted you to that,
Yeah.
and then what made you actually commit to getting your doctorate degree?
Yeah, good questions. So at first in college, I did not want to be a teacher. My parents were both teachers, so I'm like, I never want to be a teacher. Like that's just like a lot. a lot. So I started in a different major and ended up switching. But I really was drawn to just like working with people and helping people. So I definitely wanted to get into special education because I knew that just so many teachers in my own life impacted me, and like I wanted to do that for other people too, especially like kids who were like having difficulty learning stuff. I really thought like I wanted to change, and I still like love my job. Like I know a lot of teachers are like burnout, I hate teaching and all this stuff, and I'm like every day like I just feel so lucky that I get to do what I love to do. So that's just like a big like it just keeps me motivated because every day is like a different day.
Yeah, I mean that's such an energy boost too. Like nothing is better. Like I get that feeling here. Like I'm like this is like I'm very grateful to be here and like having that sense of gratitude for what I get to do every single day. Like it makes me feel like I'm never wishing time away. Like I'm never looking forward to the weekend. I'm just like it allows you to be present in the moment. And so what is it about, the 5 a.m. schedule and teaching that like keeps you so consistent? Is it like you're just like your days, are they so like even in the summer, like are you a routine person by any means?
Definitely a routine person, but I also feel like being a teacher, and I have 3 kids of my own, so I have a 17-year-old, 11-year-old, and 8-year-old, but 5 a.m. is like my only hour to myself. Like as soon as I leave here at like 6:05, like my world is dedicated to other people. So that's the only time that I have by myself. And I love it even more in the summer because my kids sleep in more. And so I have like a little bit of extra time in the summer to myself. So I still like to come at 5 a.m. because then I can like go home, spend some time with my dog, have my coffee, and then the rest of the day is dedicated to my kids. So it's really about like having that time at 5 a.m. just for me.
So that obviously takes a lot of commitment. Obviously, having the degree and what you've done with your time and effort with getting to that position with where you're at with your career and your lifestyle, right? So tell us a little bit about this lifestyle. Where did this sense of commitment and making time, prioritizing time, like how is this energy like ingrained in you to be able to think like this, to work like this?
I think like just getting my doctorate, I always wanted to like just learn more. So I was like really super interested in reading. So I'm like, I'm going to keep going back to school and I'm going to get my doctorate and learn like everything I can about like how a kid learns to read. So it took, most people take a doctorate maybe like 4 years, 3 or 4 years, but it took me 7 years because I started off with 1 child and then had 2 more along the way. So it took me such a long time. And that's like a lot of people quit. And like I was just like telling myself, like, I'm never going to quit. Like, I don't care if this takes me 20 years, like, I'm going to finish this program. So I think like I just have this like in me just to keep going no matter what.
So how did that come about you though? Like, tell us a little bit about
Yeah,
your
yeah.
lifestyle growing up. Give me that. Give me
Yeah,
that.
everything. So
Love that.
so I think growing up, I grew up in Western PA in this really small town, probably like smaller than Havertown. Around like the closest city is Pittsburgh. So I grew up one of 6 kids in my family. So this is like the 80s, 90s. So like just like no electronics really. Maybe like we had a Nintendo, but it was just like constant playing outside. I have 4 brothers and a sister. So our summers like and weekends were just fun, right? Like always doing stuff outside. And I just think like that activity, that like fun in things has carried through like where I am now in my fitness, because I feel like everything we do here is there's a lot of fun to it. But I just think that, you know, my brothers, like seeing them as I'm growing up, like involved in so many different sports, that has just like motivated me as well.
So I know later on that we kind of want to get into some challenging experiences in related to fitness, but my curiosity is what are some things that you wish, like some challenges that, as someone whose career is education, like what are some challenges you face every day that people who don't work in education, people who aren't teachers probably would never really think? So what are like oh my God, those like at least maybe just a big 3, you know?
Yeah, big 3. I just think, you know, that's a really good question. The big 3, like what you don't know. I just think there's
any number.
Like so much of our job is like a lot of behind the scenes, as like you probably know as coaches. Like there's hours that we spend like planning and prepping and thinking about, you know, certain situations and how to you know, help someone. So I think that's a big aspect that people are like, wow, like you spend like hours and hours like just planning. And just kind of like also the paperwork that I do. I'm in special education, so I have like so much paperwork, and I've had like meetings with like, you know, very like litigious meetings with lawyers and like that kind of prep that people are like, wow, like you have to like do that as a teacher. Yes. So I think like you have like the paperwork, the behind the scenes, and then you also have to like actually teach and then like manage like a lot of times families and answering questions. So there's just like so much work that behind the scenes, even like you guys do as coaches, that like we don't know that you do.
I just keep coming back to this. Like, I just am very intrigued. And I mean, I see it every day, you know. And I think it's just that commitment to just showing up. And I really think like some of that is ingrained into us, right? And I think there's also a part of like you have your work challenges and all these things, but I come back to like sometimes people go through like really hard things that allow them to shift that gear of like looking at life as like, okay, I have these gifts, I have these opportunities, like I'm going to take advantage of them, I'm going to commit and I'm going to go. And obviously, you know, being a mother of 3, like you've had your challenges there, but have you had any circumstances in your life as you were, you know, maybe growing up or going into your school and colleges that like maybe shifted your mindset with like, oh, I have this adversity, I have these challenges? It could be just school itself, you know, but like that allowed you to maybe reframe a little bit, or do you feel like it was just like, hey, this is just my DNA?
Yeah, I think like any sort of like challenge that I've had like growing up or even like in adulthood, like I haven't used that challenge as like a way to impede me in ways. Like if I'm like, okay, like even small challenges, like a couple weeks ago, like our daughter kept waking up in the middle of the night. Like I could have very easily been like, I'm not going to 5 a.m. Like I want to sleep another hour, but I'm like, no, because that's just not an excuse for me. Like I'm going to wake up and go, and I might be tired, but at the end of the day, I'm going to feel better because I actually worked out. So I think like any challenge, whether like big or small, that pops up, it's not like, I don't use it as an excuse. And I think so many people like will be like, oh my gosh, like definitely like there's definitely like pain and challenges that we all go through, but using it as a way to like motivate me to like go to the gym to kind of get away and forget about something, I like to do that instead.
I mean, we talk about that all the time, like turning an experience like, you know, into like, what are you going to create with this? Like as in the spirit of the quote that Leigh gifted us, you know, all we have to do is decide what to do with the time that is given to us. Gandalf. Marco was very upset when I accidentally referred Spider-Man last week. But anyway, a very kind gift from Leigh. But it's true,
Yeah.
you know, like deciding like what you're going to do with those situations. And so like obviously you're consistent. Like being consistent is like your MO. You show up here every day. What is it that makes you want to keep coming back? Like, what is it about MFP? What is it about CrossFit that has you like, I'm here every day?
Definitely. So I want to go back a little bit and tell you the story of even how I like stumbled upon CrossFit. So I was like,
take us there.
Yeah.
Take us there.
Going to group classes a lot, like, you know, definitely went through group classes like all through college I would go, and then through having my kids, I would go to different fitness classes and I would run a lot. So I would train for half marathons. I actually ran my last half marathon. I think I was like 16 weeks pregnant and like was hating every step of that half marathon. But, you know, when you run, like I loved like just looking at like the times and trying to beat my times all the time. So I had that aspect of my fitness. And then I met a parent through soccer, Evangeline Grover. I wear like her shirt sometimes to class. And I was like, she is like jacked. Like she was just like her, like just how she looked and how she still looks. Shout out Van. Is amazing. She's just an amazing, amazing athlete. And I told like my husband, I'm like, I'm going to ask her like what she does. Like what in the world does she do to like look like that? And like mustered up the strength one day at a soccer game. He's like, oh, I do CrossFit. I'm like, oh. And like I had this like notion in my mind that CrossFit was just like for like, you know, like not, I don't want to say crazy people, but like people who are just like CrossFit and like super like into like, that's all they did. Yeah. So I'm like, wow, like that's like, didn't like in my mind, like my perception of her, I'm like, wow, like, okay, if I'm going to look like that, like I'm going to try CrossFit. And so I'd reached out to Marco, tried a class, and I tried on Thursday, which I think was like,
still longevity. Maybe.
Yeah, it was like stations. We were like,
it wasn't longevity just yet. It was getting close there, but yes, it was close.
Yeah. So it was like a nice way to like ease in to everything because I'm like, okay, like kind of like what I was doing before with like different classes. And then I was like very like hesitant still because I'm like, I don't know, like I saw a bunch of stuff, like you know, there's just like different equipment that I'm not used to like working with. So I was like very hesitant. And I remember you emailed me and you're like, what's holding you back? I'm like, oh, I can't answer that. Like nothing,
That's a great question.
you know? So I was like, all right, let's go. So I would, you know, started and then I would like Google things. Like if I would like look up the workout and it would say like a snatch or a power clean. I'm like Googling like what in the world is that? Like there's just another language and vocabulary with CrossFit. And so, you know, like Evangeline would check in with me at soccer games, like, how's it going? And she would like encourage me, like, don't worry, like you'll get there. Like there's so much to learn, but you'll get there. So she was just like super motivating in terms of that. There's definitely like, I would avoid classes. Like I would see like a snatch or a rope climb and I'm like, I'm not going to class tomorrow. Like I can't do that. Now it's like, yeah, I got to go.
Well, you know, you made a good point because that's a very relatable situation. With I mean, probably almost everybody that walks into the gym here. I mean, you're going to look, again, this is very typical when you walk in and you see something that's not your traditional LA or Planet Fitness with machines, and it's like open space. You got the rings, you got the ropes, you got barbells, weights, kettlebells, sandbags, all these things. And it's just like, and you know, I could shift this to like how we think about things in real life, but you already have, again, this concept in your head, like this is going to be really hard and I'm not going to be able to do this. Obviously, maybe some of those thoughts came in and you came obviously to a good class that is a little bit more low key, a little bit easier to start. But I do remember assessing you and I was like, you know, we obviously, when you first come to class, we're going to take notes and understand, you know, where your level is at. And it was just more about your ability to do new skills, right? Building your overall strength and stability. You obviously had a background of, you know, aerobic and endurance through running and, you know, doing boot camp and stuff like that. But, you know, that idea we preach here, and that's the idea, what we want you to learn is to expand your ability to move, expand your ability to build strength, expand your ability to be more aware of your body and its potential, right? And that's the idea. So do you feel like, you know, you made this decision, okay, I'm going to show up, I'm going to give this a shot. What do you feel like was giving you that continued interest other than accountability? But
Yeah.
like, what were some things that we were doing here that you remember throughout your journey that were really allowing you to like, oh, hey, like I can continue to commit. I understand this. I want to learn more.
Yeah, definitely. I think just knowing that everything could be scaled and adapted. So I remember just like, oh, I can't lift the bar. Well, here's a trainer bar. Like, I feel like everything in my mind that I was like, oh, I don't know how to do that, or that's, that skill is too much. Like, there was a way to scale things that I was like, oh my gosh, like anyone can do this, right? Like, just anyone, any movement can be scaled. And that was just like, for me, really just like encouraging and kind of like my comfort net that would, if I like saw a workout, I'd be like, oh, I'm not going to worry about it, because like Coach Marco's going to scale it for me. He's going to tell me like what I can do. Even like through, like, I had like hand surgery, and you were like, keep coming, and like you would show me like how to do things, like scale things. It was amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's like that's one of those things we really try to like share here is like keep moving. Like,
Yeah.
CrossFit is infinitely scalable, and just thinking about like sometimes we'll have like Saturday workouts, and people will see like, oh, 100 burpees, I can't do 100 burpees.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could do something of a similar stimulus, and that's open mindset is really important that you have, because it encourages you just to like keep showing up, and like, one, you're in an environment where like you will be supported and like will meet you where you're at, and two, it just kind of inspires you to like keep going, because then you're like, oh, like I'm building towards something, I'm trying new things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely want to touch on the journey a little bit too, because being with you through all of it pretty much, and I think all this sounds great for Leigh, but I also, just as your coach, I do remember a phase, and I don't know if you're as much aware of it, but I feel like even though you continue to show up, there was maybe some complacency during this journey where you were kind of just cruising, and I think there might have been, I'll push you from time to time, and I know where your relationship now is with fitness, but at those points, I feel like there's maybe some resistance to continue to be coached. Maybe we're just kind of riding out this wave a little bit. And so I don't know if you remember any of those moments, but I think from your evolution, you definitely start to create a different mindset of like, why am I coming here? What do I want to learn? And like, what's my end goal? So maybe take me a little bit through of like what I was trying to maybe understand during your journey. If you don't, I'll let you know. But also like maybe how your mindset has shifted, and like how did that evolve into like your why of what you show up here for?
I think like just getting stuck in like, I can't do that in my mind. Like, I would often be like, like seeing other people in the class and just say like to myself, like, I don't think I can do that. Like, I'm just not even going to try. Like, I'm just not even going to try.
There
like,
we
because
go.
I know
There we go.
I'm going to fail, right? Like, I know I'm just not going to do it. Like, I just can't do it. So I think like as soon as like anyone says that in their mind, it's like, you're not going to be able to do it because you already like put up that roadblock. So I think just like working through that, and definitely like the people in class, like encouraging each other, like just try it. Like Courtney will be like, just try it and get over with. Like, so just, I think, getting over that mindset of like, okay, I can do it, first of all, and I will do it. And maybe I won't do like as much weight as somebody, but I will one day. So like, kind of like now my mindset is like, I will be able to do like that skill one day. Like, I'm going to try and I will be able to do it.
And that's pretty much what I was getting at. Like, I think it was very clear with that thought process for you, right? And look, I mean, we do want to have a realistic relationship with fitness. Like, we understand that there's progression, and like potentially, doing a muscle up or something like that may not ever happen, or, depending on what you want to achieve. But it's also like, where do we find the boundaries, balance of, hey, like, I can push myself a little bit. I can try, and which I have you try stuff all the time here. And yes, sometimes it doesn't fly, right? And then also it's like that also relationship where I don't need to try to do it that much today. Some days I had my daughter at 2 a.m. at night, and I'm just dog tired, and it's 5 a.m. and I'm still here. I just need to have that ability to put lightweight on my bar, just move, and just get something that allows me to have that clarity for the rest of my day. And really that's that idea that we want to take from that experience for all of us, right? It's just like, how do we develop these boundaries in a relationship with fitness as a whole? And I've done this a lot of times. I mean, from where I'm at then, and even so I think about it now, is like, I could push myself to this extent, but like, I don't really need that for me today. I just need to be able to move and get something that makes me feel mentally fulfilled. So yeah, it really just comes also down to, not too much of a tangent, but like how our mental thoughts play into a whole holistic role of like, not just in here, but outside of the gym. So we'll segue a little bit, but I want to know a little bit about, has this mentality inside of the gym, has that translated to anything outside of the gym in terms of like how you maybe perceive, just your life in general, your kids, your work, relationships?
Definitely like the mindset of just like continuing to try something and believing in other people that they can do it. I think like that's translated to my own children, like my youngest playing softball and like striking out for the first 9 games and like just continuing to tell her like, you still got to like show up, you still got to do it, like it's gonna happen, you're gonna hit the ball. And like she eventually did. But just I think, that mindset of like continuing to try, because so often I think we want like a quick fix, or we want something to like happen right away for us. And that's like people, and like especially kids now, like they want something like right away. And just that mindset to teach that like you need to put in the time, you need to put in the practice and the work and the hours. And maybe the person next to you is going to get it in 1 hour, maybe it's going to take you 100 hours. And I think like that comparison too of seeing people who might be getting it right away and some people who are not getting it right away is just like a really good thing that's carried in like all aspects of my life.
Ooh, clip that.
Yeah, and
clip that one.
what I think is also important to like keep in mind is like this perspective of like seeing something like, oh, I can't do that. Like that is a human experience that everybody at every level of life has. Like not just in CrossFit, but if you use CrossFit as like just like a little example, like, I've been doing CrossFit for 10 years and there's a million things I can't do. Marco is way fitter than I am. There's a million things he can't do. And like every single one of us can have that thought and think like, oh, I can't do that. But, like every single person on planet Earth, because there's always going to be something that we can't do. And I just think it's really cool and productive that like you're able to get that idea that like, hey, this is about me, this is about my growth, and it's not about anybody else. It's just about like what I'm doing with the time that's given to me.
Well, also, I mean, Leigh's has a lot of growth with, understanding that aspect of like your time, what do you want to achieve? However, she's an award winner. She's an award winner at this gym. All right. So as you guys are getting ready for the holiday party coming up on December 7th, our last holiday party, and we do this every year, we'll maybe create an award or two that a little bit newer, funkier, just something outside of the box. And so we had an award called the Sisterhood of Squats. And that award was gifted to Leigh and Courtney Ringsden. And so, as she already mentioned, the idea of community and camaraderie and having, a team, especially with 5am being so bonded with the team there. But I think it's probably been over the past 2 years, that was something that just really organically shifted. I think you guys started as a teammates for a competition, and then that really just built in. So like now you have this whole other aspect of like, an emotional support buddy, but also somebody that is going back to that idea of like pushing you a little bit and vice versa, because you both balance each other out with your strengths. So I won't shout out Courtney too much, or I'll let her do that, but tell us a little bit about this journey of, not even just Courtney, but the whole community, but like how that has allowed you to continue your growth here, especially as we're getting into like years 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on.
It's definitely like the encouragement of the class and not being like, oh, like this person can do this, like they think they're great or something like that. Like there's like none of that in this class, classes here. Like it's all just like encouraging each other, and especially with like the people, you know, if we have to be partners with, and Courtney and Bernadette and anyone else, they're just like pushing each other and like being genuinely happy for each other, and clapping and like, you can do this, and just that's like, I can't even like put it into words like how amazing that is.
Yeah.
Because I've never felt that in other classes. Like it's kind of like you do your workout, yeah, you might like be in a rotation with someone, but they're like not really like talking to you, or they're like telling you something else. Like it's very encouraging. It's just very like, you know, when you're you know, squatting, when I'm squatting with Courtney and she's like, okay, we can do a little bit more, like let's just try, you know, a little bit more, and or you know, just being there for each other during that is really just amazing.
Yeah, I mean that's what sisterhood's about, right? I mean there's a bond, but there's also, you know, an accountability, right? And that's why you're the sisterhood of squats. I mean, talking about squats, Leigh, you're a strong squatter, and obviously mobility, ankles, knees, hips, torso. I mean, you know, that comes to play like naturally, but also your development of like how well you move in terms of a mobility standpoint. But yeah, I just feel like that was really good to touch on, and you guys for providing that award for you, because that really kind of stands out. And obviously, you know, you got to be a sister to, you know, Courtney has her yelps in here sometimes, you know, we'll shout that out. Everybody knows that. So, but like somebody could be very judging of that. And then you're just like, you know, I accept you for who you are. Right. And that's really the bigger picture of community, right? I mean, we're all going to have, we don't have to necessarily, you know, be huggy, lovey with each other all the time, but like, can we develop an atmosphere where we all have this coexistence that is accepting and as best as we can being non-judgmental, because we are in states in our society, especially where there's a lot of polarity, and no matter what, like this is the place where we have common ground. So do you feel like that resonates with you a little bit in terms of like that greater picture of like our mission, right? No matter what, we are all still one because we have something to bond over.
Definitely. And I feel like so many places like you can fit into, right? Like I can go to any gym and feel like I fit in there. Like go to CrossFit down the street and be like, okay, I could fit in here, right? I can do the workouts, but like I feel like it's deeper than that here. Like it's a sense of belonging. Like people belong here, and like they see how we value each other. So it's like greater than just fitting in. It's really a sense of like belonging, because you can truly fit into so many different places and spaces. But here, just that sense of belonging, that like we belong in this class together, and someone new joins and it's like, you know, they belong with us, and we just, you know, have that for each other.
So I have a unique question. So you are here longer than me, and my question is, what has it been like to evolve alongside MFP? So like, what has the evolution been like for yourself? Like, what evolution have you seen in yourself, and then like what evolution have you seen here? Because obviously, like you're here since just about the very beginning. So just like going hand in hand. And what's that been like?
Yeah, I mean, the evolution of just Marco and learning more about his programming, I think, you know, at the beginning, kind of like, you're kind of just like, you know, you might not like understand why we do things. Like, I know like certain, at times people will be like, oh, why do we have to do this today? And like, why are we going lighter today? Or why are we not using a barbell today? And like you hear, you know, or like think that, but really like truly understanding, like as time goes on, as you like hear Marco speak about things, and you're like, oh, okay, like we can't like do this every day. Like there is like all of this behind the scenes time that like you're spending on like programming and thinking about like what's best for us. And I know like coaches have said that before, like no one programs like this. And I think traveling and going to other CrossFits, I'm like, they're right. Like this kind of sucks. Like at other places, you know, like I travel to this CrossFit every summer in Indiana, and like, you know, like the one workout this past summer, it had Turkish get-ups. And there was like, no, like I know here when we do it, like there's like so much modeling of it and like working through with like even no weights and just going through it to make sure like every part of the Turkish get-up is on point. And at this particular gym, it was like, all right, we're going to do Turkish get-ups, go. And some people were like, wait a second, like, what even is that? Right? So I feel like knowing, like, as I started here and then going to other CrossFits to see the difference and like what we get here, like I'll text Marco and be like, you spoil us. Like, this is like unbelievable, like what we're getting here compared to other places. And I guess it's just like, like different, models of programming and things like that. But just the coaching here, I see like over the years is just amazing.
Well, I have a lot of gratitude for that. Thank you very much. And that does mean a lot to me. And I just want to say too, like, Leigh's, one of my role model members that I've coached over 5 years. So yeah, she's going to give me a lot of praise and all those things. And I try to also really balance out that egoic perspective for myself because, I still have a lot to learn and I still have a lot of things I can improve on with programming, but I do put a lot of effort when I try to develop a program. And I probably spend an excessive, maybe sometimes too much time, like just trying to write and create. And I try to create in terms of like my own passion, inspiration, but also in a way that challenges the community because you've been here for so long. Like, yeah, I try to really challenge the community to open their perspective of what is fitness and movement and trying new things. Like you said, like try new things. Like we want to be stuck in our own bubbles and comfort zones of like, yeah, everybody loves the barbell, right? But like there's still so much we can explore with other apparatuses, different movement, rotation, coiling, and longevity. Like you are probably, if I were to look at the attendance, you might be one of the top longevity attendance people, and that's probably where I sometimes add in like some wacky things because it's not like I just program it to program it. Like I actually have created intention and thought to it, which obviously you gave credit for. So yeah, I just really appreciate that, and I also don't want to be judgmental towards other affiliates because from that perspective, for me, my non-judgmental point of view is like, I just feel like there's just some of these people just don't understand. They don't know. They haven't had the tools and guidance and abilities. But and I don't want to talk poorly on them. I mean, obviously, as a member, you experience because, like, you go and you pay and you try to get an experience. So, like, you're going to compare. But I've traveled and experienced these things myself, and so like that gave me a perspective of like, I deserve to give you guys a service that's really, thought out. Right. And I think that becomes the bigger picture of it. So, again, just super grateful for that. And yeah, I'm going to continue to challenge you guys. I mean, obviously, I think right now to continue on that topic is like really expanding the mission of MFP to not just be a space that is supporting your physical experience, even though that's the majority of it. But my greater mission is to allow you guys to experience the emotional, mental, and the spiritual. And you've also supported my journey as well with how I've expanded that. And my backstory, and I explained like how I really came back to evolving, this aspect within the gym and the community. But that's also a challenge, right? Because again, like the idea of trying new things, opening perspectives. So yeah, you came to like all my Infinity classes when I was opening those up and starting those, and just like being more open to like, foot health stuff and, just spiritual work and breath work. And so I just appreciate you for being very open-minded with that. But like, have you noticed that shift within the community here? And how does that make you feel? And what do you think about it?
Yeah, definitely. I think just the addition of the Infinity classes and the plunges, like, I think, people might have been at first like, what is going on? Like, what are we doing? Right. And then like just trying those classes and like understanding that there's just more to not only like CrossFit, but like this experience here that can be added to what we're doing to make us even better. So like all of that breath work, like I remember like going to the Infinity classes and like that was difficult for me, like the breathing and the holding in and like just being really mindful in that moment. Like I've always kind of like struggled with those kind of classes, but then I'm like, I need those kind of classes because I'm not good at them. So I need to like do more of that. And like that translated into like, doing like, I remember like a couple classes after like an Infinity class, we were doing like the really low like sled pushes. And I remember like just breathing differently through that because your body's in a different place. And I think like that translated like that breathing into like other aspects, especially like that particular skill.
Madness.
Yeah.
Well, that's something we say all the time. Like everything that we do is for a reason. Like we're not just, especially like when you see things programmed, like things that Marco comes up with, like it's not random. Like it's for a reason, and it's to, you know, expand your mindset or help give you some other tool to live better, whether it's in here or outside. You know, everything is for a reason, and I think that like when it comes down to the spirit of CrossFit, like trying new things really is like the CrossFit foundation isn't barbells and burpees. Like CrossFit, it's trying new things and playing different sports and like, you know, using new tools and like always like having this variability, you know, and I think that is like, you know, it's important to remind people that just like, this is what CrossFit's about. It's about always like staying curious, trying new things, growing.
Yeah.
So let's segue a little bit. How do you view, very general, like how do you view health? I'm just curious. How do you view health? What does the idea of health mean to you?
Health. Oh, yeah. So many
Put you on
different
the spot.
aspects.
We didn't give her a preparation for this either.
It wasn't on my prep email. So I think there's just so many aspects of health. And I think, you know, growing up, it was like physical health, like there was a lot of focus and like the physicality of health. But now I think it's the evolution of like, you know, we need to be mentally healthy too is just amazing because that added to like the physicality or the nutrition, like all of those aspects are really important for I think like health right now in our conversations and like the focus here is not just on like getting muscles here. So I think that that's really has opened my mind just to like define health and just much broader, you know, perspective of health.
Love it. So for you now, in terms of like creating habits, we know this is for sure a habit for you. Like you commit it, you keep going, you don't stop. And that's a big part of your health, right? But we know that you have 3 kids and coached 2 of them, at least, Jolie and little John. And yeah, I mean, you have a family, you have a lifestyle. We know that you're super busy and condensed with your schedule. So tell us a little bit about like how you navigate your whole day's experience through, you know, having these schedules and non-negotiables that really keep you just accountable and going. Or just take us through your day in terms of like your family and all those things.
Yeah. So like after the gym, like I said, like it's really about, you know, teaching and then my family. So I feel like constantly just giving myself to other aspects in my life. But, you know, our family's very active. So all 3 of our kids are in sports and I really push them to do like, I don't believe in like specializing in a sport. So I pushed all of them to like, okay, you can't just do soccer. You can't just do track because, you know, doing track is going to translate to soccer. You know, doing baseball and ice hockey. Our son does baseball and ice hockey. Like those complement each other in some ways. So I think just pushing my children to just think about like being active in different ways and like trying different things has been really important for me as a parent and knowing that, you know, they see me working out here and they're like, oh my gosh, like my mom's doing something too, or my mom's like in shape. You know, I think that's important for me to be like that model for them. So I think, you know, all of that together is just really important for our family.
Have you noticed like anything outside of here, like after doing CrossFit for 5 years, like how has it enhanced your life? Have you noticed whether it's like playing a new sport, like I don't know, maybe you play pickleball with Courtney or something? Like have you noticed like yeah, there you go. Like how have you noticed like oh my god, like you're like I'm grateful that like I'm so consistent with like showing up.
Well, I have played pickleball with Courtney. She's amazing. And Cornell.
She loves pickleball.
Yes, she's very good. And she's getting faster. Like it's making her faster, like running. I forget the question now. What did you say?
Well, specifically for you.
Oh, for me, yeah, like how it's translated. Well, I think like first of all, like I didn't even see myself as like a fit person until like people were like, "Oh my gosh, your arms," or like they would like comment on stuff, and I'm like, I didn't even like see that myself, like that change, because, you know, it's like weighing yourself every day. Like you don't notice like changes. So I think that was like the first thing that I was like, wow, like this is like really impacting my body and like changing my body in like really healthy ways. But I think just like staying up with my kids and like being able to like joke around that I can like run faster than them, even though they know like I can't, but like I can do like activities with them has been really motivating for me, because I want to be the parent that's like, hey, I might not beat you in a 400, but like I'll jog it, or like I'll run and like be a minute behind you. But that to me is like just really motivating as a parent.
Yeah, I love that too. It's, you know, we talked about that with previous guests, and it's just the idea of, you know, setting, you know, an example for just health in general, right? Or just that open mind and perspective. And, you know, that's something obviously both of us are going to be approaching here within this upcoming year. And that's like something I'm very, that really motivates me, gives me a lot of inspiration. And two, is just like, you know that that's going to be an important part, because essentially what we're trying to do is like, and it's been happening within our society as a whole, like this whole generational shift of health and wellness. And, you know, physical activity and group activity has been a big part of that. And so, yeah, and every time they get to see you, you know, and what you do, I mean, obviously you should be proud of yourself. I mean, you've made significant progress, and, you know, we do the Open every year, and, you know, again, you have that Leigh kipping pull up every open.
I save it.
Yeah, you save it, which I love. You know, we know that's still a challenge for you. Know we've had pull up challenges, but like it's just amazing. Like we just cruise and maintain. I think that's great, though, right? It's like, you know, you're not concerned about, you know, how you end up doing, you know, a muscle up. You just like, I just want to cruise and maintain. And then, hey, when I got to turn it on for the Open, you turn it on, you get those pull ups in, and then you go back to cruise control, and that's the best part about it. Do you anything about the Open? Like, you know, have any quotes about that, or just ideas of like, you know, what's your favorite part, or what are you looking forward to?
Oh,
The
wow.
Open.
Well, I remember like the first Open I think I did was during COVID.
Oh yeah.
I feel like that was maybe, I think that was the first one.
Yeah.
So I just remember like just going back to that, like watching the videos, and like they would show like the scaled versions. And that at first, like I was super nervous. And then when I saw the scaled versions, I'm like, I just remember there was like this older woman like lifting like a water bottle. And I'm like, okay, like there's some version that I can do then. But I think, you know, just thinking about the Open, I always get nervous just about like all the workouts about it. I know everyone's like, it's just another workout, but for some reason it just does make me a little bit nervous. And, you know, I like won't sign up to the last minute. And last year, like you texted me, like you sign up. I'm like, okay. You know, it's just fun. It's just like a fun, you know, competition here. And it's just really fun to see people push themselves to, you know, what they can do.
Well, we talked a lot about that last week too. Just like, I mean, we get it as well. It was when that clock hits 3, 2, 1, go, and you know you're going to be going through this experience. But that's also a beautiful thing too, right? There's a whole spirituality of like how that allows us to really just be in that present moment once the clock runs, and once we get going into that workout, then like time doesn't exist. It's like you're just going for that next rep, and then you'll have those moments in time where you're like, oh crap, like I'm getting to that dark place a little bit. Do I want to go there? Do I want to stay moving? So yeah, there's a lot of beauty to that CrossFit clock, and yeah, I mean, you know, your team red this year, Fire Brothers, so we made it happen in the Open. Sorry, Team Blueberries.
We're gonna make a trade for Leigh.
No, she's staying. Talk about competitions. Are you able to make it next weekend?
I am on ice hockey duty because my husband's traveling, so I will be in Virginia, I would have been here. I was really excited for that.
Who's Courtney going to partner up with?
I was trying to match her with Victor. Because I think that
would be a great team.
Well, guys, yeah, remember, you can do this co-ed. We'll remind you. This is a co-ed competition, so we are finalizing our sign-ups this week. Make sure you guys sign up by the end of this week, so that way I can plan all the logistics properly for you guys. So Leigh will be with us in spirit.
Will be.
No problem. But yeah, let's just wrap this up. All right, let's just get a little bit more ideas. So, you know, if I'm just, you know, at the soccer game, soccer parent here, when I say, yo, Leigh, your arms looking like, what do you do for working out? how do I get there? What would you tell that person? What would be your advice to them to, maybe show up here and like what they should maybe have mentally prepared as they maybe go into a process like this?
Yeah. Just to be, I tell people all the time, like I work with, like people ask me, like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I do this CrossFit next to the Head Nut in Havertown. You've probably driven past it 1,000 times. They're like, oh, yeah. And I do tell people, like, if you start, be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like, if you're the type of person that's going to be like, okay, I'm going to go in there and like, just like rock out everything. Like maybe you will, I don't know. But like you have to be comfortable with knowing like there are things that like you need to learn. It's definitely a process of learning in here.
Yes.
And it's just a different way to get healthy and, just to stick with it. Cause I think so many people will start and maybe they don't see like the results in like a month or two and they quit. Like I'm really sad when people do that because they just really like need to put in the time and they will get the results, whether it's like years, it takes a while to like see changes in like your lifestyle and your body. But I think so many people are intimidated of starting anything new in general. So just not to be intimidated and be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, and that's a life lesson for life too.
Yeah.
Like it's not just CrossFit, but if you want to grow, like you want to get better, it's not always going to be comfortable.
Yep.
And just getting used to that is super important. So life lessons here, take them to work, take them with your family. It's how you get better.
Yep.
Yeah, you really touched on that like whole idea of instant gratification and like doing this for so long, all the time. And I try to have, empathy towards that of like, what's their relationship to themselves and what's their relationship to, how they approach something that has challenge and adversity. But that comes down to like, it's infinitely scalable and, everybody can do this, but it's not for everybody. And I've always tell my coaches that when we have trials and all these things, and I'm okay with having those conversations, even though, like we want more members, we want to run a business, but it does take a particular mindset of growth to be in the space. So in addition to that, the growth comes back to our motto and our mantra, just show up, right? And it's just like, just being there is that 1%, that little glimmer that allows you to find that growth. So, we try to make it in all aspects of our life, but what is that term, just show up, that mantra, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think it goes along with the time. Like when I hear people like, I don't have time for this, like I don't have time to work out. And I always like say, everyone has the same 24 hours. Like think of someone you like idolize. Think of like Beyonce. Think of like whoever you think is like doing so much in their life. I don't know why I said Beyonce, but
you love Beyonce.
Yeah, I do that. Or J-Lo. I mean,
J-Lo, yes.
Someone like Einstein, you think like things that people have like really done and they're like, we have the same time as that person. Yeah. So just literally just showing up and giving your time for an hour is really not that much in like the greater scheme of things.
Well, Einstein proved that, time is just, it folds and it bends and it's all happening at once. There's no past, present, and future. So think about that a little bit, all right? But J-Lo. That's it. I said,
yeah.
So this is the thing. J-Lo, the J-Lo picture, if you guys go on Wodify when she signs in the class, is J-Lo. I mean, there is a resemblance there. I was like, yo, Leigh, is this you? I remember it was like one of the first the first months, I'm like, who is this on there? And I'm like, is that you, Leigh? I'm like, no, it's J-Lo. So there we go.
There you go. Love her booty.
Yeah, listen, that's why we're here, all right? It's all about getting the tushies going.
That's right.
All right? As we say, that's your foundation. So, Leigh, thank you so much. A lot of gratitude, and this was a wonderful conversation. We have a lot to clip here, and I just really hope you guys just got a lot out of this, and just continue to think about what your journey is like. Always, it's always a good reflection, even if you're not here sharing on the podcast. Reflect. What has this journey been like for you? Whether if you just started or if you've been here for almost since the beginning. So. Yeah, we're going to wrap it up, all right? And, we'll see you guys next week. We'll get back into our regular flow, and this will be hard to follow up, Leigh, but we'll do our best.
I believe in it.
All right? All right, excellent. All right, team. See you next week.